So, Vilkta is our newbie to Vilkta Svetainė. It's our first time here.
Yeah.
And I contacted. We got in contact like a couple of days ago, I think.
Yeah, I think 2 days ago or one even. I think it might have been yesterday, honestly.
Yeah, things happen sometimes. Has to happen really fast. So yeah, I was like, I gave always, I give very open proposal to artists, like come share any processes that you feel like, any practices that you are working on. Everything is interesting as long as you're sharing it. And Vilkta was like, okay, I can propose to you to give to some kind of demonstration and talk about
modular synthesis.
Yes, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I think it's going to be really cool. So how we're going to do that? I will ask you more questions, but I will tell about duration. So Vilkta will give you a little bit of backstage look of how these machines work. That I just call them a piece of metal with the things to turn, but it's not that. It's more than that. So we will get to know more about it, and then later Agle, who is an opera singer, will join Vilkta's. You have some very fresh collaboration that you worked on it today.
Yes, it's very fresh.
Yeah, you rehearsed a little.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because now it's the process. It's just all
Of course, it's a process. It's a practice. It's us. And then after that, we will enter into some kind of impro jam, where all of you are welcome to join. We will see how it's gonna go. You will feel the vibe, and we will see. Maybe I will stop at some point and get some ideas and guide it. Maybe we won't guide it and see how we want to create energy together. But that's the thing. We're working on creating energy in the room and enjoying the evening together. All right. So Vilkta, these instruments and your background with music. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, so actually I'm really glad it's in English because first of all, it's a lot easier to talk about music production and terminology without having to translate them to Lithuanian, because there's no like fixed good enough vocabulary in Lithuanian to begin with.
I know.
And second part is I also love streaming, and
yes.
I often do that on Twitch, and I'm actually live right now with the phone over there, so hi to everyone here, but also hi Huggy, hi Terminus, hi Fox, and all the lurkers.
Hello guys, nice to meet
since,
you.
There are people from all across the globe, so English is the preferred language for streaming as well.
I'm happy we are spreading. Nice, thank you for that.
So yeah, English is my preferred language
Awesome.
for talking about things like this, and also in terms of getting into modular synthesis is quite a recent thing for me, but I've been doing some kind of music in public for over 2 decades by now, in various forms, like in rock bands and metal bands and folk ensembles, solo experimental electronics and DJing and just different kinds of things. And currently, I guess this could be closest to the project that I also call my, stage name for streaming, which is B of Londor, which actually is like B as my first syllable of my name, because when traveling abroad, it's quite hard being Vilkta and having people pronounce that, so I just go as, you can call me V. And that's a lot simpler. So it's B of Londor, and that's also where I output my kind of synthesis-based creativity. So that's also something you can find lots of live videos of jams with these things on YouTube, and also some records on Spotify, with an album coming out in 2 weeks probably.
2 weeks?
Yeah, it's almost done. I'm ready to publish it, but it will be kind of the opposite of what we heard before of long projects. It will be actually 50 songs of 36 seconds.
Oh wow!
So
that's
it's exactly for the quick consumption and kind of critique of that, and actually like exploiting the algorithms, and because Spotify pays you for a listen as long as it counts as one listen if you listen for 30 seconds. So anything more than that is just waste of time. You don't get paid for that. So, you know, we get one listen by having 30 seconds to listen.
That's crazy. It's also like a duration of reels, no?
Yeah, exactly. It's also very TikTokable and...
Reelable, yes.
But the fun thing is I actually have all 50 of those full songs, which some are 10-minute songs and so on, but this will be like samples, like a portfolio of, I guess, what I'm capable of as a composer, but it will be just short snippets of those compositions. And, you know, if someone is interested in collabing, let's say, for a soundtrack of a movie or game or whatever, they can, you know, have an idea of what I'm capable of doing.
Oh, I have so many ideas. Let's see. Cool. Do you want to say anything else before you start this? Do I need to ask you, or you're gonna?
I think I'll tell about this. I have an idea of how to do it, but I guess first of all, before going into, I want to ask how many people here know the term modular synthesis or Eurorack? Okay.
3.
Okay.
4.
So some people I've already talked to about them, so yeah, I expected you to know. But okay, so not many, so I guess it will be a bit boring for those who do know about it, but I'll just start from very basics then when going and talking about this. And what I have as a plan here, I really like the idea of the format of not showing something that's a created like final finished piece, but just showing the process itself and something that you're working with. So I don't have any like melody or sequence. Like I'll be using 2 tools like this to generate sounds and this to sequence the sounds to play them. But there's no pattern ready here. There's nothing entirely. And for this thing to work, you need to connect it. And you can see all the cables are here. Nothing is ready. So I'll just go from the process of how it works, and hopefully we'll have some kind of a beat or music going by the end of it, but I'm not sure, I can't guarantee that.
So any sound that we will hear is going to be created by these machines from scratch, or...
Yeah, so I guess in terms of why I find this interesting, I guess I can mention that, is that I find synthesis of sound in general to be quite a magical thing, and I guess most people when you say the word synthesize, they imagine just like a keyboard, like an electric piano, and this is nothing like that. And when I think about it from a conceptual standpoint, it has to do a lot with music recording and the analogy to electricity, because if you think about sound, like we're speaking right now, it's pressure changing in the medium that we're talking in, just air around us, pressure changes. And if we record them with a microphone, we get the same changes in electricity, just fluctuations of intensities. And along this process, when people started recording and playing back electricity, they understood that we don't need a recorded sound to manipulate sound, and then went into the process of just manipulating intensities of electricity and generating sounds, and we got sounds that never existed on this planet before that point. Like, we don't have sounds like pure sine waves or triangle waves in nature anywhere, and these kind of tones were entirely new, and in a sense it's already quite old, but I still think it's kind of futuristic thinking about sound, but you don't need a sample voice acoustic instrument, but you can just manipulate electricity and its intensities, and that's what synthesizers do. And there's various schools like the Mo, Buchla, and so on, like subtractive, additive, FM synthesis, and so on, like how you can manipulate. But at the core of it, it's just manipulating the flow of electricity in different ways.
Okay, so that's how you're gonna start working with this.
And I guess with that I could kind of get started, unless you want to know something else before I do.
Yeah, like a question popped to my mind. So if you know, or somebody else knows, so how then the sound was discovered? Because like it would seem like if you, I bet you didn't need electricity first to create the sounds.
Yeah. So
or electrical, like electronic music sound, like how was that discovered if not through, electricity, I don't know.
So when we think about it, like let's say a microphone, it has a membrane that vibrates based on the pressure changes in the airflow.
Pressure changes in the airflow, okay, yes.
And then you have some kind of material that transforms that into changes of electricity. Let's say a capsule with carbon powder, but when it moves, it produces a very weak electric current. And then you can amplify it and you get the sound. And to get it in the speaker, we have a cone that again moves air, but
Uh-huh.
it's connected to a magnet. So you, with that electricity flow, you change the how the cone moves, and it recreates the same waves.
Uh-huh.
But in between that, it's just the changing electric current in between the microphone and the speaker.
Okay.
And that's the part where we can hijack it and connect just something else that generates electricity, anything that generates electricity,
Uh-huh.
of changing like voltage or and connect it directly to a speaker.
Okay. Cool. That sounds really complicated to me. I will Google that still after your explanation, but I guess we dive into that and see what happens. And so how's it? You're gonna do some demonstration. You're gonna play some sounds, and then we will call Edgar to join, or how you wanna do that?
I kind of want to talk while I'm doing things and
Go for
explain
it.
what's going on. So I guess
Do you need my
have a
stand? I
mic
will help
stand,
you.
yeah.
Yes. Let me not fuck it up.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So I leave you to it,
Maybe
right?
it's a bit higher.
Higher?
Lower, actually. Oh.
Šitas, kuris?
You can
Like
Okay,
this.
yeah, I think
by the
this
way,
is...
Aš
apačioj.
šitas?
Apačioj, žiūrėk.
Apačioj?
Yeah, I think this is good, really. Okay, so to start with,
Alright.
this is the output, and I think it's still turned off, so yeah, if not, let's mute it, and I'm connecting it to the output, and turning this thing on. And why it's called modular synthesizers is that you can see here there's like different components, and they're made by different companies, different people, and you can swap it out in this case like whatever you want. And so over here, let's say we have one so-called voltage controlled oscillator. So they are changing voltages and controlling, like let's say a sine wave, a triangle wave, just generating some kind of sound. And what it means, voltage control, is that if it receives some kind of electric input, you can change the pitch, the control how quick it is, what kind of frequency it generates. And the usual, let's say, subtractive synthesis method would be having the voltage control oscillator go into a filter. So subtractive, it means it gets rid of some of the frequency. So let me show you what that means. So first I'm muting this, and let's get some cable. Let's output a sine wave, and now there should be some kind of output. Oh, yeah. So that's controlling the voltage, and we can change like the different wave shapes. So that was the sine wave, like it's the least harmoniously rich. It's kind of a pure tone, and let's say a triangle wave is kind of the same, but you can hear more kind of high pitch to it. It's more harmoniously rich, and then we get to the sawtooth and square wave. So these are the usual building blocks, but there's more types like wavetable synthesis where you can just draw, let's say, your own sounds. But as I mentioned, usual like subtractive synthesis is going through a filter. So let's plug it in here, and now output the filter. Output, okay, so now so you can hear I'm getting rid of some of the frequencies at the high end, just leaving the bottom. And if I increase the drive a bit, and this on its own I can, keep on doing this and it would be nice, but we can automate that by another like voltage controlled oscillator that's just vibrating at frequencies inaudible to the human ear, the so-called low frequency oscillator. It's just very slow. And we can use that to control something. So let's take a triangle oscillator and connect it to control the filter. And now it's turning the knob for me, like it's automated that movement. And let's say it's less audible with the sine wave, so let's connect it to a sawtooth. And it's the same thing as what I will be doing here. So it's just another oscillator controlling it. But I have generate any sounds of its own, but it will send the control voltages to control the equipment over here. So let's try that. Oh, it's also working like this. It's also some kind of voltage interference. So I have it over here. Maybe let's get rid of automation for now, just to. I know it's like a piano kind of thing because I can control the pitches, but that won't be very, I guess, musical. I want it to be kind of. I have an idea of going more into kind of techno territory today, so I want it to be kind of repeating some kind of notes. So that's why I'll start it going like as a sequence, and now let's like put some steps over here. I don't know, some kind of rhythm. But let's maybe go into lower ranges. Multiple instruments rather than one. So I'll connect this into a so-called mixer over here, so kind of similar as what you would have on, I don't know, a mixer console over there. And that will allow me to have multiple sounds being generated. So, and I'll do another neat trick of connecting my headphones to this, and I'll use the left and right channels. So you'll be only hearing the left one, and I'll be hearing the right one over here. So that means with panning, I can kind of create a sound without you hearing it, and only introduce it to the main mix when I think it's ready for it, kind of like you would do with a DJ console, by queuing up things and preparing. And this is a tangible mess, but yeah, having headphones in the pocket is not a good idea without a case, but hey, maybe it's part of the performance.
I have a question, if I can. So the voltage is manipulated by changing the varja?
No voltage.
But it's manipulated like mechanically, or?
Yeah, just sending out different voltages, let's say. So it's just your usual components, your transistors and resistors and so on.
So by
changing
the resistance, then you change
the capacitors as well. So it's, I guess, various ways depending on the complexity of how you want it to work. But yeah, it's like you could solder these things at home with some knowledge of electronics. And lots of people do, and that's actually a lovely thing that Eurorack just became a kind of standard format of size and powers, thanks to mainly a German brand called Dopfer. But lots of people, like on places like Etsy and so on, you can just buy some homemade modules, which most of them are great. Okay, so now I have this, and let's see what's going on. So this is on channel 1. Okay, so this is left is for you. Oh, it's very loud on the right. Well, I'll have to make do with that. But, you know, this sounds like garbage for now, but what we can do to make it sound less like garbage is add rhythm to it. That always helps, like, you know, people already told that they want to specifically work without rhythm because then everything can sound good. So I won't do this hard thing on myself today and actually will work with rhythm. So let's take the drum module and you know, we already have something going on. around sounds before. About this one, you can randomize patterns, so let's try to do a bit of that. 3D CD rack, which is an online, digital thing you can get that works kind of like this, and you can get really great sounds with it, but it's just the workflow of being able to reconnect the cables and twist things live that makes this, I don't know, the interesting experience, at least for me. And the ability to just change what does what at any given time. That's used for streaming now, so I guess if I'm overdoing it, please tell me. I had a goal of creating it for today, to be in a single case, just to be easy to carry around. So I had to dismantle my system yesterday and just think which modules I need. And yeah, I wanted drums, obviously, just to save me here, and some free voices to have some variety in sounds. But that meant that I had no space to add some effects like your usual stuff, like reverbs and delays and so on. So I only have one filter and that's it. And yeah, I don't know how long I've been playing. Should I stop by now?
I guess yes. That was it.
Thanks.
think you played for like half an hour, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, again, I usually keep track with my phone when doing performances, but today it's doing its own work, so...
Yeah, I think it was around half an hour. That was really interesting.
I'm glad.
Nice to hear it. I didn't go to listen so much of educational part of it, but I see a lot has happened. Anything you want to share of the experience of this, or yeah?
I mean, again, I just would really recommend if anyone's at least a bit interested in sound design and creating in this way to maybe try out VCV Rack, because it's a free piece of software, but it can be standalone or integrated into a digital audio workstation. And it has lots of these things there, so if you're interested in the sound design part of it, you can try it out for free and create
I'm interested, so how do I start?
So just go into your preferred browser and type in VCV Rack.
VCV Rack,
and just download the software. You can open up as standalone, and
so software replicates these, or like
it works in the way that you have digital versions of modules, and you can connect the way you want. You have some tutorials as well,
so
both in the software or on video platforms like YouTube, and you can test it out if it's your workflow. But why I love it again is not the sounds you can make with it, but the workflow, because doing it live, patching the cables, you can use more than just a mouse click. You can use both of your hands, and you can make it really work live. And that's what I kind of like about it, that it's a live way of playing, that you can, it's a bit not controlled in a sense.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to, for example, jam together with other people, because I didn't have the usual musical pitches here. It's hard to stay in tune with someone even, unless you have separate modules like, let's say, quantizers which just pull the electricity a little bit into usual like Western music harmony standards. But right now, nothing was harmonious in the classical sense of Western music harmony.
Cool, but that's really interesting, because now we're gonna try something. Something that's it's nice to know, like what you are about to face and how it's gonna go. Before we go into that, anybody has any questions, things you wanna share? Yes.
You mentioned jamming. I was thinking about that. So I was thinking about jamming that I have a box like, I don't have it. Let's say I have.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe there's like some kind of a master output out of that box which I plug into mine, and that way we can do the jamming. But you mentioned something different. Yes, it's not like that. How in practice it's done with jamming?
It depends. Like, it's easy to jam along with other electronic musicians, because there's this wonderful thing called MIDI, which is a protocol that helps different machines communicate with one another. Let's say we can have a MIDI master clock, which sends tempo to everyone, and we just share the tempo, and then we'll always be in the same time. Like, we just connect to one master clock, let's say, and then all of our machines are in the same time.
Sync to that.
Yes, and we can adjust the tempo, and then whatever we do will be in the same, and we can just, let's say, also share some connections, and that makes it easy while working with other electronic musicians. Even if we're using, let's say, classical synthesizers, they usually have MIDI input and output. But it becomes a problem when jamming with acoustic instruments, and because you don't, you have to set the tempo, so unless you, let's say, allow the drum machine or something to keep the tempo and everyone jams to that, then you can still, then you have to not have a cable that connects things, but you have to discuss, so what are we keeping as a baseline over here, like for our jam. So it is possible, but requires some communication.
So quick follow-up then. So yeah, I imagine there are artists doing solo. Do you know any successful in that area artists, like doing in pairs, like bands?
Like who work as tandems while doing electronic music?
So whatnot, more than one.
Oh, I forgot the name, but I guess a classic example would be Daft Punk, which are two musicians with kind of similar equipment. But that's a solo artist.
UVB76.
Who?
From France. These two guys.
What was the name?
UVB76, I believe.
UVB76, I don't know.
They're small.
Okay, good. We will check it out. Nice. Anything else?
Is it
Sorry.
anything? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, it's interesting that you're talking about electronic music, which is so much like referred to as something dead because it's electronic, and then you're saying that the nice part about it is that you're playing it live. So I found that to be first of all a very, very nice mix.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, I was wondering if all of this reminds you anyhow of programming, like the automation part, the part of mixing the sounds, the part of like connecting all these little parts. For me, it reminded a little bit of programming and coding. I was wondering if that's something that you heard, or is there some sort of correlation, or what's your thoughts about it?
So first of all, regarding the live part, there's lots of quote-unquote dead electronic music when people just use playback, and it's like that meme, the DJ pressing the play button live, where it's just a pre-made song and you just use playback. But live bands do that all the time as well. Like I remember a traumatic experience from hearing 108's live, where they were like a rock band that I really liked, but they had backing tracks for everyone, and if they missed a note, there was still a big backing track, singing the vocals and everything. So it was an entirely dead performance in that sense. Yeah. So I think it depends on the approach. If you actually do it live, or if you just pre-make a song in the studio and then press the play button. So regardless if it's a live act or electronic act, it's the approach of, if you want the chance to mess up on stage, because that's something I really appreciate in artists when they mess up during a live performance, because then they're actually performing instead of pretending. And from live acts like Grimes is someone who's I've seen live performances that were really wonderful, where she messes up the sequence or forgets the key or something, and it's lots of electronics, but there's still chance for this happening. Mm-hmm. And regarding, I guess, the link to programming is there's even modules, so-called logic modules, which, let's say, take two incoming signals and then they can output a trigger when there's, let's say, and, like both of the signals are on, or where there's nor and so on. That's like the exact programming terms for gates used over here sometimes. So those are wonderful for generative music, where you create a huge patch where, when something combines something else, let's say changes the pitch or something, and then you can, there's this wonderful artist called State Azure on YouTube who creates just wonderful patches that just play, let's say, for 4 hours live, just create something like this that plays itself, and you get this wonderful ambient droning music you can just relax to. And yeah, so there's definitely links to programming and just thinking, when creating the patch, what will happen when, kind of thing, like if conditions and so on.
All right. You had a question?
Right. As this kind of setup is a bit pricey, of course. Relatively speaking. Would you prefer for new people in Modular to learn, for example, via VCV rack? I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on even maybe doing live performances on it?
I think that the VCV rack is really powerful, and if you don't mind that you can only control one thing with the mouse, or let's say map it to a MIDI controller to have more access, it's perfectly viable to make a live performance with it, and it sounds wonderful. Like, let's say, Mutable Instruments, what I have Plaits over here, like a wonderful creator from France, also a wonderful representative of the LGBTQ plus community, the trans artists who created these wonderful, wonderful modules and made them open source. So entirely everyone can replicate them, and they're digital modules. You don't have that much physical hardware in it. So the ones in VCV rack sound exactly the same.
All right.
And they sound great, but in terms of live playability, again, I still prefer hardware because of the possibilities. And I know it is quite pricey, but there's this wonderful thing called the Nifty Bundle, which is a case with 2 modules already, which costs less than any of the quote-unquote standard synthesizer, and it can be just a great entry point because it has one VCO, which can also be an LFO and 2 voices, and also a sequencer there, so you can already play with that. And so yeah, I guess my recommendation would be trying out with VCV rack first, like just to understand the workflow, like what to connect to what. But
yeah, was it the same site that you mentioned, or it's a different site? Because you mentioned one before.
Like
where you can go online and try.
Yeah, it's VCV rack.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I guess another thing that could be a possibility, and actually is how I started with doing similar things, was pure data and MSP Max and this visual programming. And you can kind of test out working with frequencies and logic and make your own modules over there. So that's also lots of fun, but is harder to get into than VCV Rack, I think.
Cool. All right, nice. We got into this nerdy.
Yeah, it's very nerdy.
For me, it's like I see this beautiful machine of shining things, and but yeah, I'm also very. I mean, yes, that's how it is.
It's very Instagrammable. I guess you can film these, you know.
I will. Don't you worry about it.
No, I mean, as an artist, you can not necessarily make wonderful music. You can just film your synthesizers and just make posts out of that.
You can also make the music based on what lights do they make. And I'm like, oh, I like this light. You can many different choices, I guess. Cool.
Yeah, these cables that light up are also just pretty.
Okay, nice. Wow, thanks for bringing prettiness here. Talking about prettiness, lady flower by the neck, I think you can come over and we will explore another realms of these how voice and these machines can.
Or I can give you this chair if you want.
Ne, tu gali čia sėsti, aš taip pasitrauksiu, aš nedainuosiu.
Okay, but you should sit down or not?
Oh, you wanna sit down or you wanna stand up?
We are talking a little bit before.
Oh, you can sit and talk. You can sit.
I can sit now. I think
Look.
better here.
Why?
For sure, just to have a better, breath and support.
To have a better breath and
It's
support.
better always to have a hard chair, not just a buff chair, to have a support for singing.
Yes. So
That's
as
the
you
secret of classical singers.
yes, as you might notice, Agle is oh, you can take the microphone.
Before I give that,
Oh yeah.
I have to kill this thing because I'll be using this one to play the
Oh.
Sorry,
They won't see that.
Sorry guys, maybe somebody will film it and we will put it on the reels, on our stories or whatever. Okay, so Agle, you are academical singer.
Thanks for joining and see you
yes,
soon.
you are.
I'm not very used to speak or sing into the microphones.
Are you going to be singing in the microphone now?
I think so, just
Yeah.
to have